Hello everybody, welcome back to the second channel, the book club, the famed book club that I've abandoned for 3 years now, it feels like, but I am back and hopefully back for good, okay? No more abandoning from my end. It's all my fault, truth be told. I'm deeply sorry for letting this one go because I don't want to, leave the channel to die. I like the book club and I want to keep doing this. I just went a bit mad for a few months and But I'm back now. The important thing is I'm back, and I also am probably going to be uploading other things on this channel too, not just the book club. And also I'm going to be speaking through the goddamned planes because I live under a flight path, and so they're just going to keep coming, and just for flow or whatever, I don't know. But some housekeeping to start with. Thank you very, very much for the reception on the last video in the main channel. A lot of the comments were very sweet. A lot of them were about exurbia, and a lot of them were about how shit the audio was. I've taken that into account, and I will definitely try to do better for next time, but still thank you for all the positive comments. And also, I'm not entirely sure what I planned to review in this video. I think it was multiple books, but the ones I'm going to do are Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl and Before the Coffee Gets Cold, which I'll start with. Before the Coffee Gets Cold, before I do that, I will say I'm gonna give everything a star rating from now on, and I'll also do the first set of books that I've reviewed. I just need to pull up, sorry, I'm doing this live, so do bear with me. I'm pulling up my videos on this second channel so I can see what I actually reviewed. Yeah, so okay, I'll start with The Bell Jar and end with The Great Gatsby. So The Bell Jar I will give a 4.2. because it really impacted the way I write nowadays, not just for scripts, but it was a phenomenal book. But I had my qualms with it. I don't know, not really. I mean, it was a fantastic book. I would profusely recommend it to anybody. Again, a lot of these star ratings, take them with a pinch of salt or bucketful, because they're quite subjective. I'm not going off on any objective basis here of like literary quality, just how it made me feel, really. So, but Flowers for Algernon, I'm going to give a 4.7, I think. Maybe a 4.5, actually. There was a lull in the action towards the middle. But yeah, it was phenomenal. Heartbreaking. Absolutely heartbreaking story. Sublimia Syndrome, I'm going to give... What did I give the others? 4.2 and 4.5. I'll give Sublimia Syndrome I might say 4.3. I might say. It didn't have the profundity Flowers for Algernon did, but it absolutely tore me to shreds for like the month after I'd read the thing. It was great. It was a phenomenal book. I'd profusely recommend that too. So again, I suspect that all of these star ratings are going to be high, not only because I'm easily impressed, but I happen to be reading really fucking good books, so that's not my fault. But yeah, Sublimia Syndrome, I'll give a 4. What was I saying? 4.3 was it? Yeah, that. The Great Gatsby, I'm going to give a 4.8 because I'm doubtful I'll ever read a better book, but I've got a lot of my to be read, but I loved the book just so much, so I'm going to give that 4.8. Before the Coffee Gets Cold now, we finally, after 5 minutes, gotten into the crux of this video. So I'd say that because of the nature of the book, it being a set of short stories, I never really got to connect too deeply with each of the characters. I think their dialogue did great for the dynamics, for illustrating what dynamics are going on between each character, but I didn't feel that emotional tie as I did for instance Flowers for Algernon, when I was so invested in the story of Charlie Gordon and his mentor. I didn't feel that here, but even still, the dynamics between the two characters in each story were still heartbreaking at times. I just didn't necessarily relate, or rather, I found it hard to wholly empathize or be in a character, given they weren't allocated so much time. I think this would be better as a sort of series, like a Netflix show or something, with little episodes or whatnot, like a Black Mirror type of format. I don't know, but it's an easy read, I'd say. It's not too in depth. That there are some passages that I liked. I will read them out to you. Like for instance, when the nurse with her husband who got dementia, the letter was very heartbreaking. That was a pungent moment in the book for me. It goes as follows: "You're a nurse, so I can only assume you've already noticed I have an illness where I forget things. I imagine that as I keep on losing my memory, you will be able to put aside your own feelings and care for me with the detachment of a nurse, and that you can do that no matter what strange things I say or do, even if I forget who you are. So I ask you never to forget one thing. You are my wife, and if life becomes too hard for you as my wife, I want you to leave me. You don't have to stay by me as a nurse if I am no good as a husband. And in that case, I want you to leave me. I read it wrong, but all I ask is that you can do what you can as my wife. We are husband and wife, after all. Even if I lose my memory, I want to be together as husband and wife. I cannot stand the idea of us staying together only out of sympathy. This is something I cannot say to your face, so I wrote it in a letter. And that's the letter that the husband with dementia wrote to his wife before he inevitably forgot everything. And I actually really like this story out of the others, because we got a lot of context into how they met and whatnot, and I think I could kind of relate to each character as much as one can for how little was allocated to the story, obviously naturally because it's a short story. And there was another passage in, I think, who was it, Kay's father who died. There's a description of how Kay perceived her father's death. It was quite profound. It said she had encountered death for the first time and referred to it as the very dark box. Once you climbed inside that box, you never got out. Her father was trapped in there, a place where you encountered no one, awful and lonely. When she thought of her father, her nights were robbed of sleep. Gradually, her smile faded. I thought that was quite poetic, very well written, but I mean, those were the only two sections I highlighted in the entire book. That's not to say the book is terrible or anything. I just suppose I didn't really find anything else much too profound or in that regard. I did for a lot of The Great Gatsby, for instance. There were countless sections. I didn't even include them all. But with this one, it's an easy read, it's a light read, it's a cozy read. Even though it's not necessarily discussing cozy topics, you can pick it up at any time and not really be too confused or disoriented. The central concept is a nice one, and I think the most interesting part of the book, for me at least, was the whole concept of time travel. That could be coming from a place of like being sci-fi brained, but I thought the concept of like time travel and all the nuances behind it and the ghost and whatnot was so interesting, but I didn't feel like it was explored to the depth that I would have liked. But that's just me. I think that's a subjective thing. It's quite charming, I'll say. The book is charming. It's the setting is quite visceral. You can like definitely get a really vivid picture of the cafe. So the author, I don't know if I'm recalling this correctly, but I think the book was originally a play, and it did super well as a play, so it was transformed into a book and then translated. I think that could explain some of the exposition and some of the strange quirks that this book has. Like, for instance, the exposition of the rules for time traveling. I get it was actually scattered. It wasn't this dense sort of paragraph of just raw exposition, or this dense like chapter, rather. It was scattered, but there was still quite a lot of exposition there. Again, I don't feel too pleased sort of slating this book. I'm not slating it because it is a good book. If somebody were to ask me should I read this book, I wouldn't say no. I wouldn't actively recommend it though. But I know a lot of people love this book, so this is a subjective opinion. All of this is subjective. I don't know anything about literature or anything, whatever. So I feel like there was quite a bit too much exposition for my liking. I didn't necessarily like the book too much. I don't know what more there is to say. This might be a short section for this book in particular, because I don't know. I just didn't necessarily resonate. The book didn't resonate with me so much. So I was bored. I just don't know. But it was good. I don't regret reading the thing, but I was a bit bored. I don't know. So for this book, I would probably give like maybe even a 3.2 out of 5. Again, that's not terrible, and I'd say it's a better book than an average book. It's definitely not an amateur sort of thing, but I'd say 3 maybe 3. I'll be crass because I'm too nice to every book that I review. But moving swiftly on, is Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. I don't know why my Kindle makes me re-download Man's Search for Meaning each time I want to open the book. The book was really good. I think that there was a bit at the end which felt a bit slow to me, and so for that reason it probably notched down the rating a little bit. But if you read, the first part, I think it's separated into 2 parts. If you read the first part of the book, you're gonna have a really emotional, like sort of empathetic, profound experience. The first part being his experience in the concentration camp. And I've read a few Holocaust stories like this. I think I read when I was a child Anne Frank's works, and I'm also reading a book right now which will be the book that we're reviewing in the next sort of episode of this. It's called Maus, Mouse. It's a graphic novel. It's along similar lines. This is probably one of the best pieces of content I've seen about what life was like in Auschwitz. Just how horrible it can be, just how it can strip one of their dignity, and also the psychological sort of implications of what being stripped of your dignity does to a person. It deals with the historicity of the concentration camps, psychology and philosophy too. It's essentially about he goes through themes of like being able to, essentially, if you have everything stripped from you, the one thing that you can't have stripped from you is your reaction to, or your interpretation of circumstance. And it's quite similar to Stoic philosophy in that sense. I remember reading Epictetus's discourses and selected writings, and I think it was him who coined the term "so be it," where in that sense it's like, if you essentially cannot have control over anything in the external environment, but what you can have control of is how not only you react to the external environment, but how you interpret it. So if, for instance, I remember there was a story in Discourses and Selected Writings where Epictetus had his clay pot stolen, or his vase or something, but it was quite a valuable vase at the time. And so this thief had stolen it from his windowsill, and as opposed to just being angry at the world because his thing was robbed, his possession, he essentially thought, oh, it's my fault that I put it there to essentially tempt the robber into committing an immoral act. So he almost felt bad for the robber stealing his thing, because he was like, I tempted the robber into an immoral act by putting my vase there. He essentially just saw, if I can't control the robber's actions, how can I control my actions to essentially live the good life as much as possible? And a lot of these themes were explored in Man's Search for Meaning. If everything is stripped of you, including your dignity, the one thing you can control is essentially your response to the external. And a few sections I've highlighted here. This one was great. If someone asked us now of the truth of Dostoevsky's statement that flatly defines man as a being who can get used to anything, we would reply, yes, a man can get used to anything, but do not ask us how. And another one. We who lived in the concentration camps can remember the men who walked through the huts comforting others, giving away their last piece of bread. They may have been few in number, but they offer sufficient proof that everything that can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. And also, I'd just like to add one thing. I always got the impression, because he mentioned as his other section, a thought transfixed me. For the first time in my life, I saw the truth as it is set into song by so many poets, proclaimed as the final wisdom by so many thinkers. The truth that love is the ultimate and highest goal to which man can aspire. Then I grasped the meaning of the greatest secret that human poetry and human thought and belief have to impart. The salvation of man is through love, and in love. I understood how a man who has nothing left in this world may know bliss, be it only for a brief moment, in the contemplation of his beloved. I'm always under the impression that humans operate first on the sort of, not presupposition, but like the presupposed inclination of a will to life. And so what does that mean? I think everything we do in our day-to-day lives is there to serve this one purpose, or this one sort of intrinsic desire of a will to life, right? And essentially we rationalize this sort of will to life with a myriad of different things that come from our day-to-day that make it worth living. For instance, I have this project I'm working on. I want to have a kid. I want to have a family. I want to, make it or whatever. I want to get famous or rich. Essentially, because of our intrinsic will to life, we essentially rationalize it when contemplating it, particularly if you're, involved in channels like mine and whatnot. You might be more of a philosophical, introspective sort of thinker, and if that's the case, you might want to sort of, you're going to be thinking about what it's all for, and in that case, you're more likely to have a sort of rational answer to like why life is worth living. And I don't believe we want to live because of this rationalization. I believe this rationalization comes from the fact that we want to live, you know? So the will to life essentially predecesses everything. And given that, imagine you had essentially no way of rationalizing this will to life. So you have this will to life, but there's no way of rationalizing it because every day is miserable. You're freezing, starving, in pain perpetually. There's nothing to look forward to. Your suffering is, you know, ambiguous, as in you don't know when it's going to end. There's no light at the end of the tunnel. And given that's the case, given this presupposition of a will to life, how would you make that rationalization of life is worth living, intellectually speaking? And so it's so interesting to see a psychologist who likely has done a lot of introspection in such a scenario, in such a place, and see how he manages. It's just fascinating. Like a lot of the people in the concentration camps, when they couldn't go for any longer, would run into the electric fence to commit suicide. And obviously it's because they no longer found a justification for their will to life. And if that's the case, the likelihood of you surviving the Holocaust is slim to none. Whereas Viktor Frankl had that will to life, and he subsequently rationalized it with something as he said, number one, purpose. Man's meaning is purpose. And number two, love in the contemplation of the beloved. So it's sort of an intellectual middle finger to circumstance. And it's such an interesting perspective, especially if you believe, like I do, that, you know, the will to life predecesses basically everything. You know, a quote, when we are no longer able to change a situation, just think of an incurable disease such as an inoperable cancer. We are challenged to change ourselves. You know, I mean, you have to read the book to understand what I mean when I say this, but you're just filled with this great sense of admiration for Viktor Frankl. He went through hell, literally hell on earth, like the worst thing imaginable, and still maintained a sort of really clear-minded perspective and such a cerebral perspective on things. And he retained integrity for his peers too. A lot of wisdom can be derived from essentially seeing a man who's lost everything and seeing what he would still live for, and how he chooses to act in the face of circumstance. And why? I think the why is the most interesting question there. This book I'd recommend to absolutely everybody. I think it's almost like one of those books you kind of have to read. It's like a must read. But as for a star rating, I feel kind of strange giving this one a star rating, so I might hold fire on giving this one, because it's more of a philosophical and historical account less than a book. So I don't feel like it's entirely clever to give this a star rating. But I would urge everybody to read this. I think this is a must read, and if you are watching this book review, I'd hope you have. But if not, do go read the thing. I haven't spoiled anything. You will get so much value out of this book, no matter what you know about it. That's all. That's that book. Moving on, last bits of housekeeping. The next books I'm going to review are We by Yevgeny, I forgot his name. We, the book. Yeah, Yevgeny Zamyatin. I've butchered that. So it's going to be that and Mouse, the graphic novel. Next book review, whenever that happens to be. And also this is recorded at 11 a.m. So it's, the 2 a.m. book club. I mean, who came up with that name? God, what a stupid idiot that guy must have been. Yeah, I just don't know why. I have to kind of stick with this name now, but it is the dumbest name, and it's so tacky and cringy, but whatever. I'm also looking over at my book. Oh, one last book. I don't think I'm going to review this one, but please, everybody, read the book Mortality by Christopher Hitchens. I keep it on my nightstand it's not really a comforting book by any means, but I still keep it on my nightstand and I still regularly read through it over and over again. It's literally so short. I read it all in I think 2 afternoons. It's so short, but it hit me like a semi-truck, particularly if you're familiar with the speaker, Christopher Hitchens. It's the most heartbreaking book, but it's the most, oh God, please read the book. Please read the book Mortality. It's shock. It's about mortality, Besides that, folks, I think we're all done here, thankfully. Jesus Christ. This is such a haphazard review, but I'm going to be posting more on the channel, more nonsense about, I don't know, whatever it might be, podcasts, why I made certain videos, ramblings and stuff. What's been gripping me lately is the contingency argument. It's been really busting my balls. I don't know, I can't stop thinking about it. Why? I mean, could things have been differently? Could they not have been differently? Why metaphysically could they not have been differently? But even still, if they could have been different, why? Is there something random going on there? But if there isn't, then everything essentially had to be this way from some sort of metaphysical axiom. And what might that be? What might that brute force truth be? Spinoza said in Ethics that God's nature is existence, and so that essentially satisfies the bottom floor axiomatic experience by definition, or bottom floor axiomatic fact by definition. But that just seems so strange to me. I don't know, it's like a bit like the ontological argument for God. I don't know, yeah, probably stuff like that. Like, I mean, the contingency argument, what the fuck is going on there? Jesus Christ, I mean, I spoke to a friend lately and he talked to me about Hilbert spaces for the contingency argument, in that everything is inherently deterministic, but quantum states exist in a sort of Hilbert space of infinite dimensions. What the fuck? Wait, what the fuck am I? What was I getting at there? It's something about, like, I don't know, I might ramble here. Podcasts, whatever, stuff that comes to mind. Fucking the contingency argument though, what the fuck? I'm so not used to this format that I'm woefully screwing this up, but you know, I do hope you have a lovely weekend or week or afternoon or whenever you're watching this. Do go on to be excited about your new projects or new things in life. New is always good. And in that same breath, do go on to learn new things. New things are very interesting, or something. I don't know. Yeah, I'm the ultimate authority. Yeah, of course, new things are interesting because I said so. I almost feel like I'm missing something here. I'm missing a trick that I forgot to mention, but I don't want to hold you for too long. So this is it now. What the fuck is the contingency argument? Another 30 minutes there. No, this is it. Thank you for sticking around. I greatly appreciate the support, not only here but on the main channel. But that's all from me. Bye bye.